hello. It's another Wednesday. We're here, and today we have a very special guest who's going to be with us instead of Nathaniel. So we have Lou, then we have Karen, and myself. This week is very special, right? Because we have, it's the first time we've had a match at the same time that the show is happening.
No, I think many, but not as important.
Not as important as today, right? And especially today, because probably you're not going to be watching us live. Yeah. You're probably going to be watching later, right? But today the topic is England. And as we know, Lou is from England. And would you like to tell us something, Lou, specifically which part of England you're from?
Well, I'm from Birmingham. It's in the centre of England. It's actually the second city, but no one's really heard of it. So.
Okay.
But yeah.
I was reading about it with the teams.
Oh, cool. Very good. That's the only reason people know the cities in England is because of the football teams.
Yes. And as we know, like, soccer is a very special football because it's called football.
Exactly.
Football, yes.
You kick the ball with your foot, so it's called football. Not like American football where you can grab it with your hands.
Exactly. Yes. So football was.
Sorry to interrupt, but yes. England just scored.
Yes!
Wow!
So we're totally
that was
in line.
quick.
That was quick. That was really quick, but I hope
it's just been like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yes. Let's hope it stays that way. Hi to all of my English friends and family who I'm going to share this link with later. You can celebrate.
So we'll probably have France versus England, the eternal fight.
It is an eternal fight. It's a 1,000-year fight, literally.
Yes, yes. It's very funny. The French called English. What's the nickname they give him? Roast beef.
Roast beef.
Yes, and is there a nickname from the English to the French?
Well, we call them frogs.
Why?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's just because, there's a dish with frog's legs, and for us that's quite strange in England.
Well, yes, it
and
is.
I guess like the alliteration, frog, French. So yeah.
Okay.
I don't like that nickname, but it's always the same way, right? The closest neighbors are always you're like. Best.
We have the gringo and yes, we have all the
But in Mexico, what happens with Guatemala? No one talks about rivalry with Guatemala.
In Chiapas, we do.
Ooh.
We have a special nickname for them, and it's we call them chapines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's also the same kind of rivalry there. Always. Yeah, but it's because we were very close to them.
Of course.
So yes, but the north of Mexico, I don't think we do care. It's probably because also Mexico in like the territorial. How do you call it? Surface is just so big,
Yeah.
And like France, for example, is 4 times smaller. So Belgium is closer.
Smaller.
Yes, England is even smaller.
Yeah.
So I think it's also because of that.
But we get a lot really from France. A lot of our culture, our language really came from French, right?
Just like the French did. Exactly. But it's the closer you are, as you said, is the more these rivalries come around, like they happen.
Definitely. And what do you think would happen if Mexico were playing against the United States in football?
They do. They play in like short tournaments, and it's like every time they play, Mexicans are like, hey, we're going to win, we're better, you don't have good players. And there's one time that US won, and it was, I think, 4-0, and then all the times Americans are like 4-4.
Oh no!
Or something.
Just one time though.
Yeah, I think one time.
I don't know if it was 4 years ago or 8, but they eliminated us from a World Cup, I think. And especially one player, his name's Donovan. And just like a year ago or so, I went to a match, and he's playing in the National Mexican League in one of the teams. So when he comes out, either to the bench or to play, all people just go crazy, and they start screaming at him like, "Gringo, get out of here!" Most of it in Spanish. So, but they do scream at him because they have this feeling of how they eliminated us because of him.
That's gotta hurt, because in America the United States, they really don't support football, soccer.
Soccer.
As a men's sport, but the women's team is the best in the world. I think they've won quite a few World Cup trophies.
Yes, but in the men's league, it's just not that supported, and not many people like it there.
I
And
loved it recently with all of the US people with the Mexican jersey. That made me so happy. That was so
Really?
nice.
yes.
Despite everything that was happening with like Trump and all of these horrible issues to do with immigration in the United States with their
Yes.
children recently, but it was really nice to see like Oprah Winfrey and all of these celebrities wearing like the Mexican
The Mexican
jersey.
flag, yeah.
Yeah.
That was nice. Yeah, I think
supporting
that's a nice gesture, you know,
And it's actually
in
the-
rough times.
It was the most sold jersey for the World Cup in the United States. It was Mexico.
Wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you know, right now we have this match happening, Croatia, England, and we're going to be giving the updates in case you're listening to us live.
Just in
right?
case.
Just in case. And, well, something very interesting is that, well, soccer or football was born in England, right?
Yeah.
There are other kinds of sports that come from like way before, like we already discussed the cultures, the prehistoric cultures in what now is Mexico, right?
Yeah.
They played juego de pelota, which was
Yeah.
something very very similar. But
Some people have argued that football originated in Mexico, so
Yes.
it's an ongoing debate. Everyone wants to claim it for themselves.
Yes.
I'm not going to claim it as an English person. I think it's.
But at least football, like we know it now, modern football was born there.
Born.
And of course, with it came a lot of things. Some of them very interesting. I was reading about the hooligans.
Of course.
Right? That's
Yeah.
something that I consider is very interesting because many of what's a hooligan is just these people who go crazy for a team and they don't care about, like, it's a violent kind of support for the group. They riot, they destroy things, they loot.
Yeah.
And which in also interesting, most of these cases of rioting because of hooligans
Yeah.
have been found to be because of that, not really the football per se, but really just that's like a masquerade
Yeah.
to do crime.
It's really like a tribe mentality, and hooliganism really is connected to like this sense of cultural identity, of culture as like being a way of forming your identity, but also this comparison with other cultures. So again, it's really, really interesting. Well, not interesting. It's quite scary, in fact, when there's close neighbors and close rivals. For example, we call it a derby day. So when it's a derby day, it would be like in Birmingham City against Aston Villa. So on those days, like even people recommend.
It's like our clásicos in Spanish, right?
Yeah, exactly.
These teams who have always had this rivalry.
But from the same city.
The same city.
So in London, it would
Oh.
be like Chelsea versus Arsenal.
Manchester
In-
City against
Of
Manchester United, right?
course, Yeah.
Or like in
exactly.
Mexico, we have Chivas America.
America,
That's a derby.
Monterrey,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we do have that one.
Yeah.
But on those days, you literally should not go to the city centre. Like it becomes quite dangerous. It's very dangerous to show what team.
Still
you're supporting.
nowadays?
Still.
I wanted to ask you
yeah.
that. Like, is it still dangerous nowadays?
It's still very dangerous. In fact, I think if you do you remember the European Cup a couple of years? Oh, how many?
2 years ago.
There were really big problems in Europe because British fans, particularly, were causing quite a lot of problems in terms of, causing violence, getting caught up in conflicts with other supporters. Actually, I think there was a big conflict between England and Russia supporters. So
Wow.
it's really quite intense, this violence. I think England were actually threatened with being like taken out of the tournament because of the behavior of the fans.
This hooliganism, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I just saw a video, and I thought I was very sad. I don't know, the word is not comforting, but it was in some way saying like, okay, we're not the only culture, we're not the only
Yeah.
country who does stupid things during World Cups and
Yeah.
games. Because Mexicans have been favored. Every World Cup there has some like a Mexican has done something.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I think 4 years ago there was a guy who jumped from a ship.
Oh,
And
gosh,
he
in
got
Brazil,
lost
that
and
was
he
horrible.
disappeared.
Yeah.
Other like 4 years before that, there was a violation of a national monument wherever the World Cup was.
Yeah.
And it is still because of that scream that they made when the goalkeeper.
The
kicks
goalkeeper,
ball.
when the goalkeeper kicks the ball, there's always like this controversy, right?
Yeah.
Of should we scream that? Should we not? What does
Yeah.
it make a reference to? Is it really homophobic or not?
And I think that's always been an issue, like in football around the world, like that, the kind of things people shout.
Exactly.
And what is the meaning? What's the intention? In England, I think there's been quite a lot of racist chants.
Yes.
Like racism against like people of color, but even like also like I remember Eric Cantona. Do you remember him?
No, I
You're
don't
too
know.
young. He was like a big player in the 1990s. He was French, so there were, I don't know, again being French, playing for Manchester United, he got quite a lot of abuse for being French. So it's
just for being French.
Yeah. So where's the limit? Where does it stop being kind of just all fun and laughs, and when does it start being?
And as I was saying, I found this comfort, which is not a good kind of comfort, on knowing that we Mexicans are not the only ones. When I was watching this video of after England defeated, what was the previous match against with? Russia?
No. It was England against Colombia.
Colombia.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they defeated Colombia, I saw this video for... No, they also...
Sweden.
Sweden.
Sweden, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
They
Such
took...
big football fans.
they went to IKEA, to an IKEA store in England, and they took it. And they were jumping on the beds, and they were just
horrible.
making a mess. And I was like, is this for real? So that's when I say that this is this kind of not nice, but it's kind of comfort of knowing that we're not the only ones doing those kind of stupid things, you know?
And it's international.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's
really all over the world.
exactly.
Apart from the Japanese, did you see the images?
They clean, right?
Yeah.
Which
That's
then the
lovely.
Koreans copied, and which
Yeah.
then South Americans and Mexicans and North Americans and many people started doing it, and I think that's very nice.
That's
That's
really
football.
nice.
I think that's the
That-
message that football should share with
Exactly.
everyone.
This message was very nice in a World Cup. I think it's the
Yeah.
first time it happens.
And I think that's really what we should focus on, is that football really is like this universal language. It's something that is the most popular sport in the world, even though people from the
Definitely.
States would like you to believe otherwise. But it is the most played, not just in terms of, like,
And
obviously
watched.
it does, and watched. It brings in a lot of money, but it's also just something that you can play on the street anywhere, in any language. Like, I've seen
Yes.
some beautiful moments on my travels where people are on the beach, they meet some kids or some other people, and they start playing football. They can't speak the same language, but
They speak that language.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's a great way of communicating, right? And as you said, even if people don't like to believe it, but it is the most famous and most watched sport in the world. Even people, even aunts, uncles who never watch TV, who never
Who hate football.
who hate other things, they can be watching the World Cup, you know, and just being like supporting a team, or you're cheering for their team. And it's just,
Absolutely.
like yesterday I was telling you the story of Nelly's mother.
Oh,
They are
yeah.
French, and they're all watching the match yesterday.
yeah.
And she was like this at some point. She was like super nervous,
Oh, gosh.
and she's not really a big fan of soccer, you know.
No.
But those moments that you can share there, I think they're nice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's something quite interesting linguistically about it's kind of related to social identity theory, but also linguistics, like how people talk about football when their team is winning and when their team is losing.
Yes.
Have you seen it? It's actually in one of the texts in our book, but it's really related to social identity theory, and like that when your group or when your team is doing really well, you want to be closer associated to that group.
Yes.
So you use the pronouns we won, we're winning. Oh,
And
our team
once
is
they
so
lose,
good.
they.
They. Oh,
Yes.
they lost. I don't know what they were thinking. Yeah.
like in Mexico, it was like very trendy what Chicharito said, like imaginémonos cosas, right?
Yeah.
That was like that
Chidas.
was chidas.
And
That was-
everyone was thinking about that. I mean, I remember every commercial was like, let's imagine this.
Yes.
Let's do this.
And it was very
Yeah.
popular. It became a trend in just a
Yeah.
matter of hours after he said it, you know?
Yeah.
And once they lost, it was just
They didn't
put between,
imagine-
how do you call this? Quotation marks?
Yeah.
They were just put between quotation marks, and they were made fun of it.
Yeah.
So it's just exactly like that, you know, like linguistically how our discourse about that changes in just a matter of seconds. Once they lost, it was all. Or I could tell you this. I was watching the first match against Germany. We played against Germany, and we were the big surprise because we
Ooh.
won. But no one was expecting that, and I could
Yeah.
hear, because I was in this public place with my father. and I could hear all the sports commentators, or how do you
Yeah.
call them? Yeah, they were narrating the game, and they were always criticizing the coach of the Mexican national team.
Yeah.
And always criticize, why would he do that? That change was not good. He shouldn't have done that change right now. Blah blah.
Yeah.
And then the goal came. Sorry. And he was like, wow. And then at the end of the match, they had to take their words back. Like even if he didn't make the best choices, he won and recognized his work and blah blah. And
I mean, that scandal right at the beginning, right before the World Cup, that really did kind of mark that game. But then, I wasn't even watching. We were trying to start it on watching it online, trying to stream it, but we were having problems with internet. But when the goal happened, oh my gosh, I could hear screams from the whole of Cholula. It was insane.
People was just like crazy.
Yeah,
because we couldn't believe it, and I know, I think that that made an impact in all of us.
Because I think Mexico haven't won since, I don't know what year, but it was a lot of time. And everyone was really happy. And I remember my family telling, no, Mexico's not going to win. And I was like, come on, let's trust in Mexico. We can do
Germany,
it.
Right?
Yeah, because it's Germany. And then when Mexico scored, I was in the in my house, but in the street, as you said, everyone was screaming.
Yeah.
And nobody was in the street. Everything was empty. And I think that sense that football made, it's lovely. It's amazing.
And it'd be nice if we could keep on using that energy, like the energy we felt last September 19th when the earthquake. You feel those energies, that kind of energy that almost never happens. And if we could use it, apply it to other things, it would be fantastic.
That's so true.
Yes, but going back to England and soccer and football. Sorry, gosh, I'm so used to. I also like calling it football because it's a ball being kicked by a foot. It makes perfect sense. But going back to this very interesting of hooliganism, many things have happened around all this time. We have on the 1970s. It all started from the 1880s. That's when it all started. Like the first official records we have of hooliganism. I was reading also about dragoons, a platoon of dragoons having to control people.
Wow.
Dragoons were part of the army, but they were called like that in very old times, the army of England, right? Those were the dragoons. And they had to control it. And now the most famous teams have been always associated with hooliganism, and at least every one of these teams have their own club of hooligans, we would call them. And the most famous teams are the Arsenal, the Chelsea, the Manchester United, Leeds United, Millwall. I didn't know that one.
I think does it exist? It still exists?
Millwall, Tottenham,
sure
Tottenham, yes. The Portsmouth, West Ham United, Leicester, Bristol. Those are the most linked to hooliganism.
I don't know. I think Birmingham City and the Zulus, they're quite an infamous... It's almost a gang.
Yeah, the really. Zulus.
Yeah.
And is it true? I was reading about them. Like, the Zulus are called like that because they are, like, the first cross-racial group of hooligans. Because they had... Know. Yes, it was like the first group who had this combination of black and white, because by then most hooligans were just white English people.
I think that's something quite special about Birmingham, really. Like, Birmingham is a really multicultural city. It's like one of the places where we've seen a lot of integration from quite early on. We were talking about this just before the program, like especially just after the Second World War, there's a huge, England, the English government invited people from the Commonwealth, which is, South Africa, Canada, Jamaica, countries that had been part of the British Empire, to come and work in the UK. So in Birmingham, we saw a huge increase of immigrants from all over the world, but a lot from Jamaica, also from India and Pakistan, of course. But we saw this big increase in like multiculturalism, like a big mix of cultures. In fact, that led to lots of really interesting movements with music, like the two-tone ska movement with the Specials. You should look them up if you haven't heard. That's actually in Coventry, but UB40, like lots of really important kind of cultural moments in terms of like creating this really multicultural country. It's not obviously not all perfect, and in fact Birmingham voted to leave the
Brexit.
European Union, which is
interesting.
It's
right?
interesting and
Just
sad.
like when Mexicans voted for Trump, as interesting as that.
Yeah.
You know. But
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll be back because this is getting more interesting, and yeah, see you in a second.
UPAEP, rumbo al 50 aniversario. Misión.
Crear corrientes de pensamiento y formar líderes que transformen a la sociedad, en la búsqueda de la verdad, integrando fe, ciencia y vida. Valores.
Junto a la verdad, el bien y la belleza, nuestra universidad sostiene como valores rectores la dignidad de la persona humana, la libertad, la solidaridad, la subsidiariedad, la congruencia, el respeto, el amor y la justicia. Visión.
Somos una comunidad universitaria fraterna, congruente, alegre y comprometida, que es referente en la conjunción del pensamiento humanista, cristiano y las ciencias, que forma integralmente líderes con alta calidad profesional y compromiso social. Contribuye a la transformación de la sociedad con propuestas pertinentes, orientadas a la consecución del bien común. Tiene presencia e influencia en los ámbitos local, regional, nacional e internacional. Centra la gestión en la persona y optimiza los recursos al servicio de la misión institucional. Líneas rectoras.
Atreverse a vivir congruentemente nuestra identidad, como ejemplo de virtud en el servicio, con respeto y amor al prójimo, para la transformación social en orden al bien común.
Privilegiar a través de la academia la formación humanista cristiana en busca de la excelencia científica y profesional, con pensamiento universal y trascendencia social.
Crear sistemas académicos de auténtica pertinencia social, a través de la docencia, investigación y extensión, para enriquecer la cultura y participar en la solución de los problemas fundamentales del país.
Involucrarse en la formación y desarrollo intercultural de la comunidad universitaria a través de ámbitos y vínculos de internacionalización.
Lograr ambientes de confianza, colaboración y servicio, dentro de una cultura de austeridad, transparencia y evaluación. UPAEP, rumbo al 50 aniversario.
And we're back. Now, continuing this hooliganism thing, there's also something very important which has already been mentioned, which is racism. There was a point in history where hooliganism concentrated on this racial thing, and especially when in the 70s, when a lot of people started coming to play to England, like especially black people, African people, and well, the chants and the things were focused on attacking these black people. You know, they would do monkey sounds, they would throw bananas on the stadium, and which this happened just a few years ago in Mexico. We did it, I think, to Panama. I don't know which, or Honduras. I don't know who we were playing against. And some Mexican fans just threw bananas at this player, which I think is very. That's when it loses the fun part, you know. Like that's when it just goes over the limit.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we have to, there's always going to be a bit of, there's a sense of competition there, but really when you're making personal comments about players, when you're making racist comments about players or homophobic comments, then really,
it's terrible because, as you know, I'm a big football fan, so I like to go to the stadium, and there are many colored guys playing the teams, and there's people who still making monkey sounds, telling horrible things, and I always say, Mom, can I stop them? And she's like, no, you cannot.
Because they can get very violent.
But it's horrible to listen that comment.
Yes. They would even, at the end of the match, they would even spray racist slogans around the city, around the stadium. And they would even go like, like this, some religions that go around just giving papers. They would spread literature, anti-black literature. So it was like going to the extreme, like why football players shouldn't play there, why was it bad to be black, and those kind of things, which I think are full of hatred.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, of course, we're talking about the 70s, which, as we mentioned, Mexico, we just saw it a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sad part of it, like it's all happy and fun and but at this point, when these people just go nuts and they just lose sense of what's right and what's wrong, it loses the fun part,
Yeah. So another, I don't know if you want to talk about, do you want to talk about Wimbledon now? Should we move on?
Can we just finish the
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because Wimbledon is the other super famous sport, right? Well, the examples of like super extreme hooliganism, there has always been a lot to talk about. But Liverpool, there were 14 fans who were convicted in 1985 at the end of a European Cup because 39 people died in Belgium. They were playing in Belgium. And 39 people died after a stadium wall crashed or collapsed. And it was a sad story. It was, of course, it was caused by rioting and crazy things of the hooligans.
I think, I'm going to make some comments on that in a moment, but I'm going to let you continue.
Okay. And this, the team and English clubs were banned from this cup for 5 years.
Yeah.
I think that was a very harsh but reasonable measure. And I think that's when it's just taken to the extreme, And the other one that we have here is Ken Bates, who was the chairman of Chelsea back in 1980, the mid 1980s. He installed an electric fence in the stadium. That's crazy. And when he wanted to turn it on for the games, they wouldn't allow him to do it. It was just like a preventive measure. But he wasn't allowed to turn it on during the games. I think this has been just like, wow, like when you read there's an electric fence to control people there, it's just astonishing, It's just, wow.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And of course, we have some hooliganism in Mexico. We have, this has spread, it started all in England. England is famous because of that. There was a point in history where it was called the English disease. But it has spread, like there's hooliganism recorded in Turkey, recorded in Switzerland, which usually is very calm, in Belgium, of course. And of course, we cannot forget about Mexico. We were talking about some of that. And in 2003, Monterrey and Morelia had this match, and there was a big fighting in which police had to intervene. We also remember the derbies, what we call derbies, between Chivas and America. They have also gone to crazy levels, and several, the Chivas banned from this. They banned all of the supporters to come onto the stadium.
So there is another between Santos and Tigres, and it's super horrible because they don't kill people, but they hit each other, they kick each other, and it gets crazy because some people has to jump to the field and stay there till it finish.
Yeah, it's insane, right?
Yeah,
and in 2015, in the Gold Cup, Mexican hooligans started throwing garbage and trash against different games with Trinidad and Tobago and Panama. That's the one we were talking about, the banana thing.
That's very intense, yeah.
Yes. And well,
before I think hooliganism is obviously it is an important issue, and I think it's something that really the football leagues, football teams, people who are role models do have to really do something about this. But I think it's also football fans have a really bad reputation. They're obviously not all like that, and there have been some really they also get blamed a lot when things go wrong. So there was a tragedy in Sheffield in one of the stadiums there, where a lot of people died again due to, I think, people fell down and they were crushed against each other.
Wow.
And it was a really terrible tragedy. But in that case, it was very easy to blame the football fans because they have such a bad reputation. But really, there are a lot of other people at fault. The police were letting too many people into the stadium. You know, the way this stadium was set up really was not very safe. It was all standing. They were all standing up rather than sitting down. So obviously, you can imagine it's very easy to fall over. It's very easy for accidents to happen. So I think it's kind of this balance of, yes, we have to address hooliganism, we have to address
but there are
racism.
other issues.
But yes, there's a lot of good things going on with football fans too. Football fans are not all hooligans. They're not all racist or homophobes.
And exactly as we were mentioning, most of this hooliganism is used, or it has been previously studied to be used as a masquerade for crime. So most of those hooligans are not really into football, but really into just using it as a pretext for their crimes. So people who are really fans, they don't really care about hooliganism.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting to make that point. And now, what's Wimbledon? What's that?
Wimbledon. Well, Wimbledon's been completely overshadowed this year. It's really weird because usually in like the British press, you see at this time of year, it's always around July, British summertime usually. But you see a lot of press about Wimbledon, which is the tennis tournament. It's not the only tennis tournament in the world, but it's one of the main ones because it's a lawn tennis tournament. So they play on grass, which is like the oldest, most traditional way of playing the game, and that's the way in England. You know, people say you should play tennis on the lawn, right? But yes, every year we receive players from all over the world, like the biggest names in tennis, Serena Williams. We have our favourite British tennis players, the ones that we always have hope in, but never really make it.
I read that Andy Murray is not in Wimbledon this year, right?
Really?
Yeah, because I put it, in fact, because he had an accident or an injury or something, and he's not playing.
No, I do
but
remember
there
that,
was another guy named Kyle Edmund, and it's the best hope for England.
Well, it's interesting. Every year we have it was Tim Henman for a lot of years, then it's been Murray. So outside of the tennis courts, outside of Wimbledon, the arena, they have a hill. So for a long time it was called Henman Hill because people would gather there to watch the tennis games, especially if Henman was playing on a big screen outside of the stadium. And then it became Murray Mound when it was when it was Murray that was playing. So it's quite a nice. It brings a lot of people together. People enjoy watching tennis. Not a lot of people.
So Wimbledon is just tennis.
Just tennis.
Just in grass.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. I thought it was a completely different thing.
No, just tennis on the grass, and there's a lot of traditions that go with it too, which is nice.
Okay, cool. Do you know the rules of tennis?
I do.
Okay.
You're gonna test me?
No, I mean it's different from the actual thing that we know, like 1 point each. Like goal or a score, and the scoring is different. The rules are very.
So if you have zero,
specific.
it's called love.
Love?
Which I like. Instead of saying nil or zero, it's love. So it's like if you have 1 point to 0, it's actually not 1 point, it's 15.
15, yes.
So it goes 15 love, 30 love, 40 love.
How do you spell that?
I think it's the same.
L-O-V-E?
Just love. Yeah, love.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not sure where that came from, but yeah.
Love for everyone.
Yeah.
And then it goes to 45, and then it's a set, right?
I think it's 40 for
40.
some reason.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think it's 40. I used to play tennis. Yeah. It's
40
like 15,
and then a set.
30, 40, and then it's a set.
But then if both players get to 40, that's a deuce, right?
Yes.
Is that's what it's called? Deuce.
I think it's a deuce, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've played
And after a
tennis,
deuce, you have to go to advanced or something like that? Advantage? Advantage, yes.
Yeah. So
and then you
have to get 2 points.
Yes,
to
because
win.
if the other one scores to advantage again, it goes back to
deuce.
deuce.
It's a very complicated game.
Yeah.
Although I like it. It's a nice sport. I think it's...
It's a very funny story, and my brother always laughs about this because I learned all the rules of for tennis from video game.
Oh, cool.
It was called Mario Tennis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they explained you all these things, and the score was like that. So once we were watching something on tennis with my brother, and I answer all those questions before they said they tell the answer. They told the answer on the TV, and he was like, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "Mario Tennis." So that was funny.
Yeah, that's a good way to learn it. Video games can teach us a lot.
Yes,
I have a lot of students who say they've literally learned English from playing video games.
I have learned very advanced words from there, which I didn't even
Yeah.
know they were advanced. Like I remember the first time I came across plethora. I was like,
Ooh.
"What's that?" And I looked on a dictionary, and I was like, "Wow, it makes sense." And because that game was one of my favorites,
Yeah.
it just stuck. You know, like I remember what plethora is. So that was nice and
Yeah.
very very weird vocabulary depending on what you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Wimbledon. When are the finals, or has it already finished?
I
I
think
think no.
No.
I was reading yesterday that Serena Williams is going well, and today we have Martin del Potro against someone, Federer,
Okay.
I think.
But they usually don't like overlap with the World Cup, right?
I think they usually do, but no one. It's like when England gets knocked out of the World Cup, it's like, okay, let's
watch
go to
Wimbledon.
Wimbledon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. But this time you're just going
Yeah.
and going and going.
We'll
and
see what happens.
Probably to the finals, right?
Oh,
So
gosh,
far, we're
Just
still
far
1-0.
45 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
the first one already finished?
Almost.
The first one?
Just
Okay.
5
more
minutes.
minutes.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. And has England ever won the World Cup for soccer, for football?
Yeah.
The last
thank-
time was in 1966.
66, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was long
People
time
love
ago.
it.
I think it's 60, right? Because
1966.
You
was
weren't
the last
even
time.
born, right?
No, exactly.
No one.
And like,
Does your father, mother tell you stories about how people celebrated?
they haven't really mentioned it. They're not really big football fans, but it is something that in England people are quite obsessed with. Like the players from that game became like huge celebrities. Obviously, even today, like some of them are still around. They'll appear on TV.
They're like
and-
stars, right?
Yeah, and people talk about. I mean, right now, do you remember the song "Football's Coming Home"? So there's like this is kind of like the chant that people are singing all the time now. Is football's coming home? You know, we need to bring the trophy back to England. But it's been so long. That's like 42 years, right?
Yeah,
Long
that's a
time.
long.
Oh, longer, hang on.
52.
52.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, 52,
52
years.
Wow, it's a
Yeah.
long time.
It's a really.
And every
long
time a team wins, gets the star on their jersey, right?
yeah,
That's what
Yeah,
usually
they get a
happens.
star.
They get a star.
they have one in here.
Oh, cool. Only one.
They do have one?
Yeah. Mexico, no.
No, Mexico doesn't have any stars.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, we'll see.
Yeah,
Who
we'll
knows,
see.
eh? We won in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Olympics. And
Yeah.
no one
Against
expected
Brazil.
that. And we were like,
Yeah.
yeah, that happened. So let's see. Who
Let's-
knows? You know.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how Mexico around the world is known for for football. You know.
Yeah.
I remember when I was an exchange student, many people, especially like Croatians, Serbians, Hungarians, they would ask me like, "Oh, you're from Mexico, so you know Chicharito? You know this guy? I don't remember this guy who has never played for the national team until Carlos Vela.
Carlos Vela.
Carlos Vela was super young back then, and he was a star already
He's
in
like
Europe.
27
Yeah.
now, right?
Yes, but he was like 17 probably back
Yeah.
then. And so you know Carlos Vela, and I was so amazed they would know him
Yeah.
from Mexico. You know, like it is like wow. So soccer, football is a very big thing around the world. You know, and it's
Yeah,
just-
definitely. And especially like Latin America. I feel like Latin America and Mexico is like we associate football.
I don't know about you, but I feel very lucky to have seen like Brazil in one of their best times. Because I got to see Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, those players who did magic. You know, that's when the word "joga bonito" was
Joga
born.
bonito.
Yes, and it was fantastic for me to see that. Like seeing them play was, I think, out of this world. You know, it was
Yeah.
super cool. Which now, you know, like the Brazilian team is being very criticized because of Neymar and how he plays and the shows he throws and.
But it's so frustrating. He's a good player, but he's
Yes,
really good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But he just like, did you see that one where there's a Mexican player coming for the
Yeah.
ball
Yeah.
and he's just sitting there, and when the
I
Mexican player
know.
just goes down for the ball, he's just like, oh my God, he's what?
I know, it's quite
That's just-
embarrassing.
yeah, it is embarrassing.
And
you would,
Argentina too. It's not
you would never
political.
see that. You would never
Yeah.
see that in the old times for Brazil. Brazil was like, wow, the hype,
Yeah.
you know?
Because they were all about agility, right? It was,
Yes.
that was what they were famous for in England, is that they're really agile with the ball. They do some quite like impressive gymnastics when they celebrate.
Yes.
Of course, the celebrations were very famous too.
Yes, and the style, you know, like the way they play, they enjoyed it. I think that was the most
Yeah.
important part of seeing or watching the Brazilian team play. Okay, so we'll be back in a few minutes and we'll finish this with a very special guest who we hope comes.
UPAEP, rumbo al 50 aniversario. Misión.
Crear corrientes de pensamiento y formar líderes que transformen a la sociedad, en la búsqueda de la verdad, integrando fe, ciencia y vida. Valores.
Junto a la verdad, el bien y la belleza, nuestra universidad sostiene como valores rectores la dignidad de la persona humana, la libertad, la solidaridad, la subsidiariedad, la congruencia, el respeto, el amor y la justicia. Visión.
Somos una comunidad universitaria fraterna, congruente, alegre y comprometida, que es referente en la conjunción del pensamiento humanista, cristiano y las ciencias, que forma integralmente líderes con alta calidad profesional y compromiso social. Contribuye a la transformación de la sociedad con propuestas pertinentes, orientadas a la consecución del bien común. Tiene presencia e influencia en los ámbitos local, regional, nacional e internacional. Centra la gestión en la persona y optimiza los recursos al servicio de la misión institucional. Líneas rectoras.
Atreverse a vivir congruentemente nuestra identidad, como ejemplo de virtud en el servicio, con respeto y amor al prójimo, para la transformación social en orden al bien común.
Privilegiar a través de la academia la formación humanista cristiana en busca de la excelencia científica y profesional, con pensamiento universal y trascendencia social.
Crear sistemas académicos de auténtica pertinencia social, a través de la docencia, investigación y extensión, para enriquecer la cultura y participar en la solución de los problemas fundamentales del país.
Involucrarse en la formación y desarrollo intercultural de la comunidad universitaria a través de ámbitos y vínculos de internacionalización.
Lograr ambientes de confianza, colaboración y servicio, dentro de una cultura de austeridad, transparencia y evaluación. UPAEP, rumbo al 50 aniversario.
And we're back with the last section for today's show. And as you can see, people who are watching, we have a very special guest. It's Professor Viridiana. How are you today?
Hello! Thank you for having me back after a long time. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much
Yeah, I
for the
started
invitation.
almost a year ago and she hasn't been here.
Yeah,
so
well,
it's been a long
Vidi was
time.
the founder, really, of the program.
With Lou.
Nice.
Well, Vidi asked me if
Yes.
I wanted to be involved, and of course, yes.
Yeah.
Who
And
wouldn't, right?
Yeah. But it was a long time ago, so it was in a completely different place. We were over in Setec.
Yes.
Everything was completely different. Jorge was there from the beginning, but with a lot of other people. We've had a lot of different students involved with the program too from the very beginning. I think we had like Gil and Andrea,
Maria.
and Maria, Nico.
Nico was there too.
So we've had a lot of students from our major in languages participating in the show. So It's been really
Was it a
fun.
different major from what is now, or just the same?
It's the same.
The same, yeah.
Cool.
Languages, teaching, and cultural diversity. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the official name, which I'll probably never remember.
That my dad always asks, what is the full name?
What is it? Yeah. Exactly. And okay, so we're Lou has something very special prepared for us and for our audience. If you wanna chime in anytime, you can just text us. We are very aware of what's happening on social media. If you send us a question, of course, or a comment, we will be replying. So yeah, tell us about that, Lou.
Well, so as you know, British English is quite different from American English. What do you guys know about British English? That's my question.
I just know how it sounds. It sounds fancy. You know, like instead of 30 is 30, right? Professor and those kind of things. It's just I like it.
I remember a whole semester about that.
Yeah. So Karen's the expert right now.
I remember British Empire.
Yeah.
I remember influence on Latin
Yeah.
and many words. I remember 80%
Yeah.
came from Latin. So
What different?
I
I think it's kind of difficult to work it out because we have
Yeah.
an influence from. It's a Germanic language, but a lot of the
Of course.
vocabulary comes from Latin.
Latin,
but
yeah.
then later it's from France. But France is a Romance language, so it's
The
difficult.
Normans, right?
And the
Yeah.
Normans, but then later on, just because we thought French sounded fancy, so we took
Yeah.
a lot of French words so that things sounded more sophisticated, and it became.
I remember, for example, the word street comes from the Latin strata. I remember that,
Yeah.
yes. And
Cool.
a lot of church-related words and religion-related words come from Latin.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah, I remember that. That's,
Well,
that's all I know. Lou.
A lot of scientific language in general comes from Latin.
Oh, yes.
A lot of other terms do come from Latin. A lot of things to do with like government and law and cooking come from French.
Yes, because when the Normans took control of England, they, how do you call it? Like they forced the language there. Right?
There was partly that, but that was actually mostly spoken by like the nobility.
Yes.
So it's mostly the nobility, and then the rest of England were talking well it's
English or
English or like the
whatever
version of
combination
English,
there.
like Middle English at the time. So it's kind of there was quite a big contrast between nobility and what like normal people were speaking.
And it's fantastic to see the evolution of any language, but especially English. I remember that Old English is about runes and these symbols, and for me it's like the fantastic time of English, and then it goes to Middle English, and now what we call now modern English, which is always evolving, but
Yeah.
it's always interesting to see those things.
We showed with some of our colleagues like some examples of Shakespeare's English, which
Yes.
is called early modern English.
Yes, early.
But it's just completely different from the language that we speak today.
Yes, just like in the Bible, there's also some thy, for example, thy. What's
Thy. Well, we had like in French and German and Spanish, you have tu and usted. In English, we had thou and thee and thy.
Wow.
So you is actually like the formal. It's like the usted or the vous or the si. And but in the past we had thou, which was you or tu or I don't know.
Wow. Yes. So you have a.
Well, I'm gonna give you a test. So we
Okay.
have. I know that you probably know a lot of words are different in English from America and from Britain. Do you know any examples?
Like chips
Chips.
and fries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the
yeah.
difference there.
And what if I?
Rubbish and trash.
Yeah.
Which one? Which one?
Rubbish. Trash.
Rubbish and trash. Yes.
Cookies, biscuit.
Of course.
I don't know if there's an equivalent to American English, but I hear all the time bloody hell.
Oh
you
yes,
know?
we love that one. That's actually kind of a bad word, so you shouldn't have said that on the radio.
Okay. Excuse my French.
But that's a word that we use quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the politer version would be like bloomineck. So,
Luminek.
yes.
Okay.
Sounds very similar.
So I have some words. These
Okay.
are more. These are not as well known in like because we see a lot about English and
Yeah.
American English and British English. So these ones are a little bit more difficult. It's a challenge. Are you ready?
Yay.
You
Are
pick
you going
them
to give us
specially.
options?
No.
No. and could you show it to us and then show it to the camera so our
Yes,
audience
absolutely. The first word is pucker. Pucker. What do you think that means?
sounds like a puck, like in hockey.
No, not at all. Okay, I'm going to give you a sentence. So you're in the market and you want to buy a pair of jeans, and the person in the market says, these are real pucker jeans. They are
Cool.
top quality Levi's.
Pucka. Like expensive, fancy.
Cool.
No.
No.
Actually means like authentic or original.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of course, you said the brand.
Where does that come from?
Actually comes from, this one comes from Hindi. So as we have like a lot of
Oh.
influence from Indian languages, especially Hindi and Punjabi.
Which is probably originally pronounced puka, right? That's
Probably, yeah,
yes.
completely different. But this word became really famous because of a TV chef called Jamie Oliver.
Okay.
Do you know him? He's very famous
I've
in
heard of
England. Very, very famous. Okay. The next one is gob. Gob.
That sounds familiar.
She's like a dumb person?
No. There's a sweet, a famous sweet called a gobstopper.
The gobstopper.
It's usually quite big, lasts for a really long time. It's like a
gum?
like a hard candy.
Okay, that's gob.
And very, very hard. No, that's a gobstopper.
Like it was make you stop talking or something? Close?
Close. So gob is your
To eat? No, mouth.
Mouth. Okay, this one's kind of similar but totally different. The letters are the same. It's bug.
Like bugger?
Bug.
I know.
No. Bug. Or like, I've had too much coffee. I really need to go to the bug.
To the red. To the
Toilet.
to the toilet. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Is
Wow.
this used among like young people or
These are kind of older ones actually. These are not. This isn't like the most like current, up to date slang, but these are like really, really well known words that we use.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is offie. Offie. Like on a
office?
Friday night, some people go to the offie to get supplies.
What kind of supplies?
Office? No.
On a Friday when
A
they're getting
pub?
ready for a party, but not the pub.
The grocery.
The grocery store, the supermarket,
When you're getting ready for a party with
liquor store.
yes, a liquor store.
Wow.
Not that I drink, but I just imagine.
What do people do? Okay,
In England.
this one is something that's important in England because
Brawly.
of the weather.
It's
Brawly.
a kind of rain.
This is brawly, no. But it's related. It's like a short version of the longer word, in fact. Something that you need for the weather.
Umbrella.
Yes!
Yes, okay.
Sounds
I'm
like
good at this.
Did you hear that one when you were in
Yeah, I think
I've
so.
never even
Yeah.
heard brawly. You know?
I have my brawly. I need a brawly.
And one more, we have balmy. Balmy.
Oh, it's balmy. Right?
Balmy.
I know. I love how it sounds. I would say barmy. You know, like,
What do you think?
I would say barmy. Right? Like,
Is this an adjective?
It's an adjective, yeah.
I don't know.
You could use it to describe people. It's not a very positive one. It's when someone acts a little bit
Rude.
different
Like goofy?
from the norm.
Like dumb,
Not dumb,
silly.
not silly.
Weird.
No.
Creep.
They might
I don't wanna
have
say.
issues. They might have.
Oh. Yeah, that might be offensive, so I'm not saying it.
Yeah, I don't know.
The
Right?
word.
It's too risky.
Yeah, I see.
So barmy means crazy.
Oh.
Yes.
Ah, we didn't think of the easiest
Yeah, I
word.
know. We're thinking of
I wanted to say
other
something
things.
stronger.
I know, me too.
I think it's almost time to go, guys.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, before we go, we want to thank Lou for being here with us today. I want to thank Karen for being again here, and Professor Viridiana to be here with us again. You know, I hope we can have her sooner than just like a year or two.
Yeah, if you invite me, maybe.
You're one of the founders. You gotta be here.
And well, this is I wanted to be here for one reason. A special reason is that Lou is leaving. This is the newsflash.
Newsflash.
Lou is going back to England, and for me, it was I wanted to be here for that reason, because I know you were going to be here, and I wanted to publicly thank you for everything and for working with me doing this. Well, with us, but especially, I think I feel closer to you because we've been working in many projects together, and that's why it's very important. I actually have, I wanted to sing a cappella, part of a song that I like a lot, and I think it's appropriate. The song is called No Need to Say Goodbye. You probably heard it in one of the movies, that Narnia movies.
Oh, yes.
So,
oh, a cappella singing.
so I'm going to start. I hope we have time. If we still have 1 minute, perhaps. So, I'm getting nervous.
I can hear you breathing.
So it says, it started out as a feeling, which then grew into a hope, which then turned into a quiet thought, which then turned into a quiet word. And then that word grew louder and louder, till it was a battle cry. I'll come back when you call me. No need to say goodbye. And just one more. Just because everything's changing doesn't mean it's never been this way before. All you can do is try to know who your friends are as you head off to England. Pick a star on the dark horizon and follow the lights. You'll come back whenever you want to. No need to say goodbye. That's all. I can't do it anymore. Thank you.
Oh, that was so cute.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. Well, I've known you for a year almost, and it's you're a fantastic person as a teacher, and also because of you too, there's this opportunity of being here and chatting with you guys, and I think it's wonderful. And whatever you do, you'll do great.
I'll be in touch with you guys, and I'll be.
We know we can Skype with you now.
Exactly. Yes. I'm so excited to Skype you guys next semester. Seriously, I was telling Vidya, I can't wait. I can
Awesome.
Yeah,
so thank you very much to the audience, and if you want to send a goodbye message to Lou, well, you can do it on the YouTube or also on Facebook or any social media you're following us. So thank you very much again to all of you, and we'll see you next semester.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck, Lou.